Hey YouTube, I'm Sergeant Indy. Welcome back to my turn-based strategy tutorial for GameMaker Studio. This video we're going to implement our ranged attack, some damage text, and a couple simple effects to go with it all. We're going to start with our damage text, and to do this we're going to need a couple of fonts, and then we're going to need a text object itself. Let's make our fonts first. So go in here, right click Fonts, Create Font, and we're going to create F Default. And I really like Courier New. So we'll go Courier New. We want this to be size 12 and bold. And then click OK. And then I want these all to be Courier New, so the easiest way to do that is just to duplicate them. The next one we're going to call F Damage. Make its size 16, also bold. Click OK. Duplicate again, and the last one is going to be F Crit, and this is going to be at size 18 and also bold. So this way we've got bigger, bolder, brighter, more eye-catching text for our critical hits than we do for our damage, and the damage will stand out even amongst our normal default font. Okay, now we're going to make a new object. Create object, and we're going to call this O damage text. We're going to set its depth to -3 because we want this to be drawn on top of our actors and the effects that we'll make in a little bit. So add an event, create event, drag in a block of code. Now we're going to need a few variables here. We're going to need something to hold on to which font to use. So font, we'll set the default to F damage. And now we want these things to sort of like if this thing took damage, we want it to kind of pop up and then back down, kind of bounce. So we're going to give it a ground variable, and this will just be the Y coordinate that this damage text considers to be the grounded, and we'll essentially have it perform a really small, simple jump, kind of like similar to what you do in a platformer. So ground, we'll set the default variable to 0. Now we need a vertical speed, and I like to use VSPD. I don't like using, I'm going to have V speed pops up as GameMaker's default. It's like a built-in variable for vertical speed. I only like using that for like platformer type games. Otherwise I tend to just use VSPD and do my calculations and stuff myself. We'll need a gravity variable, so we'll set that grav. We'll set that equal to 1. We'll give it some default text. Text equals error. So if we see error, we know something went wrong. And we also want this thing to fade out after it does its little hop. So we'll have a fade variable. We'll set that to false. And we're going to need an alpha, which is the opacity that a thing is drawn at. And we'll set that alpha equal to 1 to start with. And we'll fade it down to 0. Green check out of there. Now we'll need a step event, and that's pretty simple. Add event, step, drag in a block of code, and so Y coordinate minus equals the V speed, so minus of course moving towards the top of the screen. And we want the V speed minus equals our gravity variable so that it will slowly stop its acceleration up, reach a peak, and then it'll start accelerating back down. That's what we want. And then we've got a ground variable, so if the Y is greater than or equal to ground, like it goes through where we've set its ground to be, we'll set the Y equal to ground, we'll set the gravity to 0, and we will set the fade variable to true, so it knows to start fading. Now, if fade is true, we'll do our alpha variable. We'll set that minus equals 0.1, so it'll take about 10 steps for it to fade out completely. And then if alpha is less than or equal to 0, which it should hit 0 on the nose, but I like to put a less than just to be safe. We're going to destroy the instance, so instance destroy. Just like that. That's all we need for our step. green check. Now we need to draw event. Drag in a block of code, and we're going to draw set font. We're going to set our font to the font. We've already got that saved in the font variable from earlier. Draw text color, and you need to do it. If you want this stuff down here to show up, your little hint, you have to spell it color with a British U. If you just do color, for some reason, it doesn't show up. So I tend to type it with a British U so I can look at that down there and see what I'm doing. So we're going to draw this at its own X and Y coordinate. We're going to draw the text that we have given it. And then you need to give it 4 colors. So C red, C red, C red, C red. And you could mix this up, and I'm fairly certain it creates sort of a color blend out of those 4, but honestly I've never done anything more than just one color. Either I've got a sprite that's the fancy color I want to make it, or if I'm just doing stuff like this, I just go with one of the basics. And then we get to set its alpha by doing this, so we'll set that equal to the alpha variable we set earlier. And now every time you set a font, you don't just set it for one object, you set it for Game Maker Studio as a whole. So since we fiddled with the font, we want to set it back to what it was. So draw set font F default. That'll be back to our default font. Okay, green check out of here. That's good. Now, we need to set our default font in the first place. So let's go into our game create event, and just right up here at the top, draw set font F default. Okay, and that'll just set it to our default font. Now, GameMaker has its own default font, so we want it to set it to our default rather than GameMaker Studio's default. Green check out of there. Now we're going to create a sprite for our simple little effect. So, create sprite. I'm going to call it SBIF. Biff is in like an old 1970s Batman onomatopoeia. Now we only want this thing, we don't want it to be very big. We want it to be 4 pixels by 4 pixels. I'm just going to copy, paste. We want 4 total images. And just go in here, zoom in, grab a white and 1 pixel. Next frame, we want it to be 2 by 2. Next frame, we want it to be 3 by 3. And the final frame, we want it to be 4 by 4. That's it. Just a simple little growing square. Green check out of here. Center the sprite on your way out. Click OK. Now we're going to create an object for this. So create object. OBIF. Give it the appropriate sprite. And we're going to set its depth to -2. So it'll be on top of our actors, but underneath the damage text we just created. Now, this is just going to be a simple effect. It's going to spawn, it's going to be given a direction and a speed, and it's going to spin. And then we want it to go away. So we're just going to create a couple of these to sort of blossom out from any given point. So it'll make like a little poof kind of animation. You could set up something similar to this, because Game Maker Studio has its own built-in particle system. But I think the built-in particle system is a lot of work for something so simple. If you're familiar with the built-in particle system and you want to give that a try instead, be sure to remember that if you don't clean up after yourself, you can end up with a memory leak, so be real careful with it. So let's give this object a create event, drag in a block of code, and we just need a couple simple variables in here. We're going to have an angle equal to direction. It needs a color. We're going to set that to C_white. And we want it to spin. And how we're going to, well, spin, but we don't want them all to spin the same way. So we're going to have a spin variable, and that's going to be equal to choose -1 or 1. And then later on, we'll mess with the angle, and then we'll multiply whatever we're messing it by spin. So that some will spin one way, some will spin the other. And then we want it to give it a scale variable. We're going to set that equal to 2. So our little 4 by 4 BIF sprite is too small. But I wanted to give some size variation, and making it bigger and making one at a scale of 1 and the other like twice as big was too much. So I made it at 4 by 4, and some will be at 2 times that size, and others will be at 3 times that size. And I think that makes a bit both more uniform yet more similar at the same time than doing 1 and 2. So that's all we need here. We're going to add a step event, drag in another code block, and all we need to do here is cause this thing to spin. So angle plus equals, we're going to go 4 degrees times spin. And like I said, that'll cause some to spin one way and some to spin the other. Green check out of there, add a new event, draw event, drag in a new block of code, and we want draw sprite extended, and then it's sbiff -1, and this time it actually does have an animation to go through. X, Y, at its own XY coordinate, and the X scale is going to be set to scale. The Y scale is going to be set to scale. The rotation is going to be set to angle. The color is going to be set to our color variable, and the alpha to 1. Although if you wanted to, you could have these things kind of fade out too, but I think 4 frames is pretty quick for an animation to make it bother to spin out. So this is fine for now. Green check out of there. Green check out of there. Oh, we're not done there after all. That's right. We need a way to destroy these. And initially I was going to just build an alarm into it like we've been doing, but I decided I wanted to do something a bit, well, maybe not fancier. It's actually kind of simplistic, but I wanted to show off a different kind of event. So add event, and then click other, and animation end. We're going to drag in a new code block. So what this animation end event, it'll run as soon as the sprite has gone through its animation. All 4 frames that we gave this thing, this event will run, and so we'll have it destroy itself. So instance destroy. So yeah, as soon as the animation's complete, it'll kill itself. Easy. Now we're going to make a parent object for our ranged attacks. We're going to call this O ranged attack. Now this object's going to be given any appropriate information for a ranged attack, and then it'll move along a path, and when it gets to the end of that path, it'll apply any applicable damage to that target. It'll be given, it'll create any appropriate effects. It'll create our damage text and our biff objects, and then it'll destroy itself. So we need a fair amount of information here in our create event. Drag in a block of code, and so first we're going to have the status of the attack, and then the acceptable parameters here are miss, hit, and or crit. Instead, it just lets it know what's going on there. So status, and we'll set the default to miss, and then we need a damage and damage type. And so default damage equals 0, damage type, and we'll set the default damage type to, we'll set it to piercing. And now we need a variable to hold who the attack is targeting. So that'll be target, and then for default is no one. And then we need the, well, we don't really need this, and I don't actually have any plans for it, but owner is who made the attack. So we'll have an owner equals no one. But I put this in here for other people to see essentially how you do it. You could have the person who makes this attack set the owner variable to themselves, and then maybe, like, let's say, you know, Sandy regains 2 hit points every time she kills something. We could have this thing check to see if it kills something, and if it does, it could just say, hey, owner, you have 2 more hit points now. That'd be how you go about doing something like that. And now we need path information. This is going to be just like how we set up our path in our actor parent object. So path information, we'll go movement path equals path add, and then we want path set closed, and movement path false, so it is not a closed path. Closed path, if you'll remember, will have a certain number of points, and then it goes back through them all. It makes the first point, like once they get to the last point, it'll go back to the first one. We just want a line, so false, not a closed path, and then path set kind movement path 2. And I honestly don't remember what path set kind does. You can Google it if you're curious. I know I covered it in the last video where I talked about paths. And sorry, I'm spacing out right here, right now, doing this tutorial. Sorry about that. Green check, that's all we need for our create event. Now we'll need a end of path event, and this is where we're going to do a lot of stuff. So, add event, other, end of path, drag in another block of code. I guess there's going to be a lot of code going on in here. So, if this thing isn't a miss, we want to do a bunch of stuff. So, if status does not equal miss, so if it's a hit or a critical hit, the first thing we're going to do is, it's at the end of its path, so it's reached its target, so we're going to tell its target that it's lost hit points. So target.hitpoints minus equals whatever its damage has been set to. And then we want to create a bunch of our biffs to make that kind of poof animation pop out. So for II equals 0, II less than 6, II plus equals 1. We're going to create, oops, this is a bracket, brace, something. I actually forget what all these things are called. That's why I keep calling them squigglies. So with instance create, and we want to do this at the target.x plus 16, target.y plus 16. So right at the target's belly, we're going to create our oBiff object. 2 parentheses, open squiggly, close squiggly. And so, yeah, we're just going to create about 6 of these things, but we need to give them all the information that they need when we create them. So we'll give them a random direction. So direction equals irandom 360. Give them a speed. So speed equals irandom. And then let's give them actually random range. And we'll go 2 to 4. I guess that sounds good. We'll see how it looks. Scale, and like I said earlier, we want them to choose between 2 and 3. We'll set their image speed to 0.5, so it'll only update the frame of its sprite every other step. And then if other.status equals crit, so if it's a critical hit, we'll make them yellow instead of white, so it stands out a bit better. Color equals C underscore yellow. Okay, so this for, it'll create all our biff objects. Now we need more. We need to create our damage text. And I'm going to go ahead and do what I normally do and block out a bit more spaces at the bottom so we can keep kind of in the center of the screen and easy to see. So with instance create, and we want to set this, we want this to pop up kind of like the top right corner of our sprites. We want the damage text to kind of pop up there. So target.x plus about 28, and then target.y about 2. So that'll make it a couple pixels in from the our node sprites top right corner. And we want damage text. So the text is going to be equal to quote minus quote plus string other dot damage. So it'll show -8 or whatever it is we're doing. Ground is going to be equal to the initial y that it's created at, and then if other dot status equals crit, we're going to set the font to F crit rather than its default F damage. So now we've created our damage text, and now we need to, we're going to make these targets, or anybody for that matter, when they take damage, we're going to have them shake while that biff object bloom is going off. So if status equals crit, we're doing a lot of fancy things on a crit. And how we're going to do this is we're going to have a shake variable and a shake mag variable. And so target.shake equals 8 on a crit, and target.shake mag equals also 8 on a crit. So shake is essentially going to work sort of like a timer. It's going to count down, and while shake is above 0, the thing will shake. And how much it'll shake will be shake mag. So for 8 frames, this thing will shake 8 pixels left, right, up, down, randomly. And that's what it'll do on a crit. Now on a not crit, so else, we're going to set it to half that. So target.shake equals 4, target.shake mag equals 4. And I'm not sure if it was clear there. Shake mag obviously means shake magnitude, how much it's shaking. Okay, now we need an else. So if it isn't a miss, we're going to do all of this. If it is a miss, we're going to do else. We're still going to create a damage text, except we're going to have the damage text just say miss. So with instance create, and we want this to be same place we made the other one. So target.x plus 28, target.y plus 28. No, not 2. 28, not 2. 2, not 28. Wow. O damage text. So it's x plus 28, y plus 2, because I butchered that so much. I figured I'd restate it in case anybody got confused. Our text is going to be equal to miss. And then we want the ground set to y again. And no, that's it. That's fine. And its default damage font will do fine for that too. Okay, now, so it's reaches target. If it's not a miss, it does all of this stuff. If it is a miss, it does this. In either case, instance destroy. We want to destroy the actual ranged attack object itself. Okay, green check out of here and out of there. Now we're going to make another sprite. We're going to make an arrow for Sandy to shoot. It's just something simple. So I'm going to create a sprite. I'm going to call it S arrow. Edit sprite. We want this to be have a width of 16 and a height of 6. And at least that's what I'm doing. If you want to do something fancier than this, feel free to do it. Go ahead and pause if you need to do it too. Pause, make your arrow as fancy as you want. Whatever. I'm not much of an artist when it comes to sprites, so I'm just doing something simple. Simple. Gosh, having a terrible time talking today. Yeah, just something simple like that. That's an arrow. Good enough for me. Give it some nice bold red fletching so it stands out. Green check out of here. We want this to be centered on the Y, so I've given it a Y of 3, but we want its X origin to be 15. Right all the way at the point of it. And hit OK. Okay. Now, we're going to make an arrow object, and we're going to make its parent equal to that ranged attack that we just created. So, create O arrow, and we'll give it the appropriate sprite. We'll set its depth to -2 to be just above our actors. And we'll set its parent to ranged attack. And we'll add a create event, drag in a block of code, and event inherited is we want it to do everything that its ranged attack parent does. And then the only other variable we've got to give this is a speed. So we're going to set its speed equal to 24. And why we're setting the speed here rather than in the ranged attack parent is so that, like, maybe our arrows go faster than fire bolts do, and then maybe, you know, ice bolts go even slower than that. You could tailor each projectile's specific speed by itself. And so that's good. Green check out of there. We'll add a draw event. Drag in a code block. And real simple. Draw sprite extended and sprite index. -1. It doesn't have an animation, but just in case. Draw to its own X and Y. 1 image scale X, image scale Y, also 1. We'll set its rotation equal to direction, so it'll point which direction it's going. Color C underscore white, and alpha 1. Perfect, just like that. Green check out of here. All set. Now, we've got to make all these things actually happen. That involves a few things. First, obviously we're going to go into our cursor event again. We spent a lot of time in this cursor event. So open the step event, go all the way down at the bottom. And so this is our right click event. We've got if selected actor does not equal no one, and hover node, the node that the cursor's hovering over, is a move node. We're going to do all of this stuff. We need something similar after that. So you got these bottom two squigglies right between them. And gosh, I'm going to go ahead and give us some space to work with again. So right between those two squigglies at the bottom, we're going to do if selected actor is not equal to no one, and hover node dot attack node. So if our hover node is set to an attack node like we set up last video, we've got a bunch of stuff to do with our actor. So first off, selected actor dot can act is going to be equal to false. Selected actor dot actions is going to be minus equal 1. Selected actor dot attack target is going to be equal to hover node dot occupant, so that's who we're attacking. And selected actor dot state, so we're going to set this to begin attack, and then selected actor dot attack timer, we're going to set that to 10, and then we have to clear our selected actor and wipe the node. So selected actor equals no one, and wipe nodes. Okay, just like that. Green check out of here. All done. Okay, now we've got a couple of things to add to our actor parent event, or our actor parent object. So go to the create event, and let me make this big enough to see what I'm doing. All the way down here at the bottom, we're going to do variables related to effects. And this is where we're going to set up our shake thing. So shake equals 0, shake mag equals 0. That's fine, just green check out of that. Let's head into our draw event and make it actually shake. So we've got all this stuff to draw our fancy lines based on where we're mousing over if it's our turn. Down here we've got this draw self. We're going to do if shake is greater than 0, open squiggly, close squiggly. So if our shake is greater than 0, we're going to do draw sprite extended, sprite index, -1, and then we want x plus I random range, and that's negative shake mag to shake mag. So it'll shake on our x from, you know, negative, whatever we set the shake magnitude to positive. So it'll give it a good range of side to side. We're going to do the same thing for its up and down. So y plus I random range, negative shake mag, and then we want x scale of 1, y scale of 1, rotation of 0, color C underscore white, and the alpha to 1. I went off the page there a little bit. So if shake is greater than 0, we're going to do this for our shake. Else, we'll just draw self normally. Okay, just like that. Green check. Now the step event, and we're going to add 3 whole states here to our state machine. So currently we've only got begin path. I'm going to go ahead and type these out now so I don't get too confused about it. So case begin attack, colon, break. And then we want case attack, colon, break, and then case end attack, colon, break. Okay, we're just going to fill all these in. I'm going to give them a little bit more space between them, and again, we're going to get down, give ourselves some room to work with there. Okay. Alright, so begin attack. We've set our attack timer to, I think 10, and that's essentially going to just act as a delay so that we can right-click and then, like, have time to watch everything happen. Otherwise, it'll just happen real fast and might miss it. I think a little bit of a delay makes things look better. If you had sprites and animations, like, let's say we were talking about Sandy, like, drawing her bow and shooting an arrow, this is where you'd set up the before attack animation, like her getting the arrow ready and like sighting down. You'd set up all those animations to work here. So attack timer, for us, we just need to decrement our attack timer 1, and then if attack timer is less than or equal to 0, we're going to change our state to attack. Okay, so what we've done here is we set our attack timer to 10, and so now it's going to decrement by 1 every single step that it's in the begin attack state. And when it hits 0, we're going to change our state to attack. This is essentially the same thing as an alarm. So if you got some really complicated system and you're like, gosh, I need more alarms than what they're giving me, you can just sort of set up variables to be alarms for you, just like this. I do it a lot. In fact, anymore in my own games, I tend to do this more often than I use the actual alarm events. So that's all we need for begin attack. We can move on to the attack state now. So in here, obviously we're going to do different things, whether it's a ranged or melee attacks. We need to set up another one of our switches. Switch attack type. And then in here we want case ranged. And obviously we're not going to have anything for melee just yet, but we will in the future. For now, this is just the one case we've got. And in here we're going to need to make an attack roll. So make attack roll. So attack roll. And we're simulating a 20-sided dice roll again. So that's random, range, and then 1 to 20. So it'll give us a whole number between 1 and 20. And now we need to determine whether we hit or not. So determine outcome of roll. So first off, we're going to do things how they do them in Dungeons and Dragons. If you roll a natural 20, your 20-sided dice, if it comes up 20 on that roll, it's a critical hit. So if attack roll equals 20, then our attack status is going to be equal to crit. Else, if it's not equal to 20, now we've got to compare whatever our attack roll was, plus modifiers, to our opponent's armor class. So, if attack roll plus hit bonus that we set up, gosh, a couple videos ago now, is greater than attack target dot armor class, then it's a hit. Attack status equals hit. If it's less than that, and this should be greater than or equal to. If it's less than our opponent's armor class, so else, then our attack is a miss. Attack status equals miss. And I keep doing colons. Man, I'm going to have an error because of it. So now the attack isn't a miss, we need to roll for damage. And we're going to do that again by simulating the roll of polyhedral dice. So temp damage equals 0. And then make damage roll. So if attack status doesn't equal miss, temp damage equals random range. And remember earlier we set up a damage dice variable, damage dice, so that we'll simulate a random range between 1, and remember that damage dice is essentially the ceiling of how high this dice can roll. For instance, Danny has an 8. He rolls like 1d8 in 8-sided dice. And we're going to add our damage bonus, which for most characters is Strength for Sandy, it's her dexterity, and actually Sunny doesn't have a damage bonus at all. And now in here we also need, so if attack status is equal to crit, we're going to add another dice to the roll. So temp damage plus equals I random range 1 damage dice. And that won't quite double the damage output, but it'll make the possibility of the damage a lot higher. So since this is a ranged attack, we need to set up a path for our attack to follow now. So we need a start point and an end point. We're going to make the start point a bit in front of the character, as in, like, if our character's here and our bad guy's here, we want the arrow to be a bit in front of the character when it starts to go. We don't want it to overlap the character. So we're going to pick a point a bit in front of our character to attack from. So attack dir, that'll hold on to attack direction, and that is going to be equal to point direction x plus 16, y plus 16, so the character's own belly to its enemy's belly. Attack target dot x plus 16, attack target dot y plus 16. And what point what point direction does, it essentially just gets a direction in degrees between 2 points. So this xy coordinate and this xy coordinate will return a direction in degrees from those 2 points. So now we want to be a bit in front of where our character is. So we're going to need to come up with something based on this direction. So begin x is going to be equal to x plus 16 plus length dir x. And let's go about 30 in front of us in the direction of attack direction. I'm going to explain what length dir does in just a second. Let's just type it all out now for now. Begin y equals y plus 16, plus length dir y 30 attack dir. Okay, so what length dir x and length dir y does is it'll return either the x or y coordinate from a point a certain distance away, that's this 30, and that's distance is in pixels, of course, at a certain direction, attack direction. It always assumes it's starting at 0, so you have to do x plus 16 plus length dir. And so what this will do is that, you know, if this is at this point, we want to be in this direction 30 pixels, it'll give us the x coordinate of that point, and this will give us the y coordinate of that point. And it's, you know, kind of a pain to have to do both, but that's how math works sometimes. Now we've got to create our attack object, and we're going to use just the arrow for now. In the future, we're going to set up something special for Sunny, but for now, the both of them, we're just going to use the arrow, because we're already at 38 minutes. This is going on pretty long. We need to wrap this up. So, with instance create, begin x, begin y, arrow. What's wrong here? Oh, I forgot an end parentheses. Sorry about that, folks. So, we're going to set its target equal to other dot attack target, our own actor's attack target. Status equals other dot attack status. Damage equals other dot temp damage. And damage type equals other dot damage type. Okay. Now we need to make our path. So path, add point, movement path, other dot begin x, other dot begin y, 100. Remember, this is the path we're adding the point to, and then an x coordinate, a y coordinate, and then a speed factor, how fast they want to go along that point in relation to the speed we set them out on. So if status doesn't equal miss, so if it's a hit or a crit, we want the endpoint to be right at where our target's at. So path, add point, movement path, other dot, no, not other, target dot x plus 16, target dot y plus 16, and then 100. Okay, now it always bothers me in these games where you see a ranged attack go right at the bad guy and hit him, and then it says miss. So we're going to make this go off target a bit, if it is a miss. So if it's not a miss, it'll go right on target, and else, if it is a miss, we'll do path add point, movement path, target.x plus I random range, and we want 40 to 60. And actually, that's pretty high. Maybe we'll just go. How about we just go 30 to like 50? Yeah, 30 to 50 times choose -1 1. Close both those off. So we're gonna go 30, somewhere between 30 to 50, and we're gonna go either -1 or +1. So that's gonna be 30 to 50 either to the left or to the right of the target. And those guys need to be in parentheses together because that's all one calculation. And then target.y, we're going to do the same thing. Plus I random range 30, 50 times choose -1, 1. Close parentheses out. And finally 100. Same speed factor as before. Now when we're done with all of that, we need to tell it to start its path. So path start, movement path, and so that's the path we're telling it to start. And now we need to give it a speed. We're going to set it to its own speed, equivalent to whatever we told the object to be at. And then true and true. I can't even... Oh, yeah. I was like, what are these? I know it needs to be true and true. What are they? So the first one, this is end action. We want it to perform an end action when it's done. And absolute, we want it to follow the absolute path, not a relative path. Okay. Now, when we're done with creating our arrow, so below this little squiggly here, we can now tell the actor to go on to the next state. So state equals end attack. And we'll reset its attack timer. We'll set it to 30. Full second. Okay. Now, this is mostly a timer, again, except at the end of this, we're going to do the same thing that we do at the end of our path. We're either going to pass ourselves back to the cursor if we still got actions, or we're going to tell the game object to move on to the next turn. So, attack timer minus equals 1. If attack timer is less than or equal to 0, then if our actions are greater than 0, so if we still have actions left to take, then oCursor.selected actor equals ID, that's us, and movement range, we need to perform our movement range function again, and the first thing we pass to this is the node that we're standing on, so map grid X, grid Y, and then we need to pass it how far we can move in squares, and then how many actions we have remaining. And then else, so if we don't have any actions left, then we tell oGame.currentActor equals no one. So it goes on to the next character, and then after this, we can move on to the next state, which will just be idle. Okay. Not quite done. Now, all the way back up at the top, we've got that shake variable. We're going to go shake minus equals 1, and that'll make it so that eventually we'll stop shaking. We can green check out of here. And speaking of shake, our target has a different draw event, and so it's not going to do what its parent has told it to do because we've essentially overridden it. And we don't want to do our a complete event inherited. We want this thing to overwrite. So we need to do our shake again here. So if shake greater than 0, and actually we can just copy this. So let's copy that. Let's paste it here. So if shake is greater than 0, we'll do that. And then close squiggly, else, open squiggly, tab, and close that off there. Just like that. And we'll just do the X plus I random range, negative shake mag, to shake mag. And we're going to do the same thing with the Y, remember. So plus I random range shake mag. Oops. Negative shake mag to shake mag. Okay. All that done out. Now finally, we've just added some like white effects and our ground is white, so that won't show well. So let's open up our node sprite, edit sprite, get in here, and just pick a nice light gray, hit F for fill, and change that to gray. We're going to do the same thing with our rubble sprite. That'll just make our little Biff sprites stand out a bit better. Okay, so this has been a long ride already, 45 minutes in. Let's hope everything runs right on the first try. So Danny, go ahead and move him wherever. Rizzo, move her wherever. Here we go. Sandy, fire an arrow. Miss. Okay, and she can move again afterwards. That's good. Now we've got Sunny. Let's try to move him and then attack. So we'll move and then attack. 6 damage. Cool. Danny, let's get back to Sandy and make sure that's working again. All right. Well, shoot. 5 damage. Cool. All our effects are working. Everything looks cool on my end. We're dealing damage. We got our damage text. Now, nothing's dying yet. That's because we're already like 46 minutes in. And in order to kill something, we also have to remove it from turn order. That's a little complicated. So, next video, we're going to fiddle around with that, and we're also going to add in our melee attacks for both Danny and Rizzo. And we'll probably also try to get around to giving Sunny his proper firebolt attack, either next video or maybe the one after that. We'll also maybe add in a couple special modifiers as well. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'm going to beg for internet points, so be sure to like, subscribe, or follow me on Twitter at Sergeant Indy. Feel free to leave a comment below if you're stuck or you have trouble, or if you just want to say hello.